Hi, good evening, guys. It's March 26, 2020, 9:30 p.m. Vlogging from my living room again on COVID-19. I'm a concerned doctor, Miskoff here, and I wanted to make a couple comments. I don't usually get too personal, but I wanted to comment on an Italian physician, Giampiero Giron, who came out of retirement after many, many decades. He was the first involved, I believe he was an anesthesiologist involved in the first heart transplant in Italy. And he just made a comment that, doctors can make a difference at any age, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, and that the Hippocratic Oath does not expire. And I just want to, take my hat off to him for coming out at especially that age and volunteering to help. Also, I'm from Edison, New Jersey, and I saw in the press today that there's a 25-year-old who is in fact reportedly on a respirator and was airlifted, I believe, to a hospital in Pennsylvania, maybe UPenn, and is waiting for remdesivir or experimental medication. And, my hometown, so when I saw it, it sort of hit home, of course, and I would be reporting it anyway if he wasn't from Edison, but definitely caught my attention, and I wanted to just put some prayers out there and ask everybody to pray for him and his family. So I just wanted to mention those two things. Also, I was just wondering, I'm not very political, but I saw there was a $2 trillion stimulus package, and thank goodness that there's going to be financial aid to the states, but just curious if anybody ever considered just shutting everybody in for 2 weeks or so and having the National Guard just deliver food directly to the house. It may cost $2 trillion, but I'm wondering if they could have just gotten it done for a lot less and locked everybody in except providers, healthcare providers, and obviously law enforcement. And why is it necessary for everybody to go out to the store? If they took that money and just made sure everybody had food for 2 weeks, didn't let a single person out except the groups I mentioned, would we not flatten the curve a lot quicker and put an end to this? But I may look back at this comment and say how ridiculous that is, and I appreciate if there's disagreement with that statement, but I just figured I'd throw it out there. Probably too late, but I just thought it crossed my mind, and I was curious if it crossed anybody else's mind in that regards. So I wanted to cover intravenous vitamin C and get back into some of the management that's going on around the country, the world. I noted that Dr. Andrew Weber was in the New York Post recently from Northwell Health, and he started a clinical trial with high-dose intravenous vitamin C. High dose for the United States, not high dose for other parts of the world, but 1,500 milligrams Q6 or 6,000 milligrams a day. I look back on my earlier vlogs when I did start the first 2 patients I treated with COVID-19 on 6,000 milligrams twice a day until we ran out the next day, or I had a very low amount of vitamin C left, so we cut it back to 1,000 every 8 hours. My clinical pharmacist did inform me tonight that we received a large shipment of vitamin C, so when I get back into the ICU next week, I'll be looking into how much we have and maybe even starting my own clinical trial with what I was thinking was 6 grams or 6,000 every 12 hours versus 12,000 every 12 hours, and that would bring us to what's happening in China. In China, in fact, there was a clinical trial started with 12,000 milligrams or 12 grams, every 12 hours. So I'll be curious to see how that turns out. And in Shanghai, Medical Association made the first and I believe only a guideline for them that basically states if you come in with COVID-19, it'll be recommended that you take 100 to 200 milligrams per kilogram per day. So a 100 kilogram patient, let's say, or about a 200-pound patient, that would be, we get somewhere between 10 and 20 grams. I did find in some of the older literature that when you get to about 24 grams or 24,000 milligrams daily in patients with a rare condition called glucose 6-phosphate deficiency, G6PD, which is very uncommon, at least in my clinical practice, that there is some risk of hemolytic anemia. I believe I saw something with G6PD or heard from my colleagues about Plaquenil or hydroxychloroquine again. I'm less familiar with the concept there, but I did read that in rare cases. But if you go back really decades of literature on vitamin C, even those that got 24 grams had only mild anemia if that was the case. But I think that may have something to do with the basis for cutting it off at 24 grams. Anyway, intravenous vitamin C, we've got a large shipment. I'm looking into maybe a clinical trial. Maybe we can get that fast track through IRB and see if we can help people. Of course, caution in those with end-stage renal disease and chronic renal failure. I think most of the renal failure that we're seeing is probably from shock and multi-organ failure from shock from the virus itself. I did mention melatonin at the very end of last night's segment. I may do a full or close to full segment on melatonin moving forward. I did ask my clinical pharmacist to check and see if we have that because I'm learning a little bit more about the mechanisms and how it may shut down the cytokine storm through blockage of a couple receptors. So we may bring that back up in the future. At any rate, I want to just say everybody stay healthy, stay well, and have a great night. And don't forget to have your sea salt instead of regular salt. As I mentioned, some theory that it blocks the ACE2 receptor, which is how COVID-2 enters the lungs and the body. And also don't forget your red ginseng tea with licorice and tangerine peels. May help with that inflammation. Everybody stay well. Have a great night. We'll see you again.